How athletic, or what do you make of your Bill Goldberg description of Braun Strowman? He's a magnificent-looking son of a gun. God dang.
Yeah, he's a monster, man. There's no question about it. He, I think them having him do 10, 15-minute matches is why they're saying, Goldberg, you need to do more than 2 moves. But, hey, man, the guy's got unbelievable talent. I would do a couple things differently if I were him and if I were management, but I have imparted my knowledge to him, and hopefully it'll be something that won't be frowned upon. And I think the guy's an unbelievable talent, and if properly taken care of, he could, the sky's the limit.
He could be the guy. He could be the guy, and not tomorrow, and maybe not even in 2017. And it doesn't need to be 2017. Everybody can just holster their guns, quit pointing your weapon towards your head. It's not necessary, but he's the kind of guy that I think, like you said, if he's brought along correctly and he's managed right, and he's tutored, mentored, and coached, he could be the guy.
He's an old school monster, man. They don't have those guys anymore. And when one shows their head, and they stick out like a sore thumb, not just because he's giant, but they do. They stick out like a sore thumb. And that's professional, whatever. That's my idea of professional wrestling.
Yeah, he moves around, man, like a big athlete. He locks up like he has some substance. There's a lot of little things that he does. And I like the fact that he realizes he's still working on selling, because even the Superman kryptonite bothered him. You guys got to be able to sell, register. Let me hurt with you so that when you come out of this, I could go along with you. I want to go.
Absolutely.
I want to go on the strip. So,
well, what are they doing with Bill Goldberg? Isn't he? Is he in a rematch with Brock Lesnar?
Yeah, Goldberg and Lesnar are going to work at WrestleMania, and Goldberg's going to work a pay-per-view match with somebody else, and they teased Strowman and Roman Reigns and Bill at the end of the show last week. They were all in the ring together, and so you kind of like, they tease things for a reason. So he's going to work with, I'm pretty sure, one of those two guys on the February pay-per-view. And of the two, I'm guessing it's going to be Reigns, because I just don't think him and Strowman's a good idea at all. So, whereas him and Reigns,
not at this point.
No,
I think Braun Strowman's going to be good. He's really, really green right now. He's a former strongman, as you know all about him. But I see a lot of potential in this kid. I had him on the podcast 6-8 months ago, just sitting there, and I didn't know where he's going to be coming from, where his head was at. But he's a very well-spoken guy, kind of a country accent, I guess from Carolina or whatever. But man, I think he's a guy with a type of charisma. But right now he's at that green stage where everything you either overact or you look a little mechanical out there, as we all did. I went through the same thing. So I think that's where Braun's at right now. And you know how it is, Dave. Man, right now you get thrown into the system and you might not really be ready to be in the system, because, Jesus, I know better than anybody. When I was, 6 months to a year in the business, I was fortunate enough to be in a high-profile angle and win Rookie of the Year for 1990. But, man, I was green as grass. So sometimes when you look at these kids, I see, where they're at, why they're at, why they're there, but and the fact that they are green. But it's just, man, WWE is like, hey, man, we need you now, and we need you to get good real fast. But it just doesn't happen that way. But I see a lot of potential in Braun Strowman. He's a big man. He's got to continue to work like a big man. And when you're working with the guys, like Sami Zayn, who's a tremendous hand in the ring, you can't do all that tit-for-tat stuff. He has to remain a big man. He can't compromise that. He can sell, but he's one of the biggest bastards in the company, and he can never forget that.
They're doing the right thing with him. The problem with him is like most of the guys that come up, they're doing their couple of years in developmental, but with Strowman, for whatever reason, and I don't know what it was. I mean, he probably only had 10 matches in developmental, or if that, because they rushed him up because they liked his size, because like. Guys like him don't grow on trees. Guys like Brock Lesnar don't grow on trees. So you almost like look at a guy like when the same thing happened with Bobby Lashley. I always thought that when I remember Cornette even was telling me this when the first time I saw Bobby Lashley, when he was so jacked up and everything, and I just go, oh my God, if this guy learns to be a wrestler, just with that look, I don't know if he can promo, but he's so physically impressive. And he's such a great athlete. And then the thing was just like, God, if you write too much about him, Vince is going to bring him up way early, and then he's going to not be ready, and then it's going to be like everyone's going to see him and go, oh, he's so bad. And that's kind of it was almost like we almost need to hide him. And that's kind of what happened with Bobby. Is Bobby was brought up way too early, and they put him with Fit every night, but still he was still brought up too early. You know, and I think with Braun, it was the same thing. They brought him up way too early because he was so physically impressive, but you know, you're very limited what you can do with him because he's literally learning on the job right now.
Well, I know. And going back to Lashley, you have such high expectations for a guy with that kind of look and the fact that he has an amateur wrestling background. So then you have the high expectations. You push him out there on the ledge, and then he gets exposed. Yeah. And so then it's hard to regain or just recover from being exposed. And so sometimes you never can overcome that.
As we move towards a WrestleMania, I got to ask you, one of the guys I'm most excited about, and he was great again last night, is Braun Strowman. I was saying to my buddies, you know, I really feel like you guys had been looking for a monster like him for a long time. Yeah. You know, I remember it. People kind of laugh at me when I say it, but I remember it. I remember the big push for the repackaged Snitsky. I remember when Ryback started, and it's like this seems like the guy. Yeah. I mean, first of all, can you tell us anything about where you think he'll end up at WrestleMania? Because it sort of seems like we're very close to it, and we don't know what happens to Braun Strowman at WrestleMania.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure exactly the plan. I can't imagine, you know, this is the time of year where everybody is so busy. I haven't been, you know, Vince is laying out a lot of this, and I haven't been around for a lot of it because we've been kind of running in different directions, so to speak, with a lot of our projects and stuff. So I haven't had that exact conversation with him. I'm imagining, though, he has gotten, he's got a lot of stuff behind him. I can't imagine we're just going to let that fall off. And surely that there are big plans for him on the other side. I know that. So he's done a phenomenal job. It's funny. There was what we were talking about a minute ago about guys not having a lot of experience. There was a period of time, I don't know, he'd been with us now maybe a month or two after he debuted on the main roster, and he did something in the ring that Vince had just told him about and had me talk to him about, and then like he did it again, and Vince looks at me and he goes, "What is the matter with this guy? Like, I don't get it. Is he going to make it? Like, I don't understand why he doesn't get that. What is wrong with him?" And I looked at him, I go, "Vince, it's like his 15th match." Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's trying to figure out what he's doing. He's lucky he got in the ring today. Like, and he looked right at me and he was like, "That's a really great point. Never mind." And like, he just,
how many matches had you had before you were in a prominent position at WWE?
That's the thing. And now it's like, if you don't make it right away, the world is just so impatient. And then even when you do, you know, everybody wants it now, and it's got to be right this second, and it's got to be right now. And there's that moment in time of having that slow boil. I look at periods of time in my career where I was supposed to get this, or I was supposed to get that, or this could have happened to me and it didn't. And I think now, looking back at it with the wisdom that I have now, or the knowledge I have now, I can look at it and say, "Oh God, thank God that didn't happen to me then. I wasn't ready for it." You know, I thought I was, but I wasn't. And it would have probably folded and it wouldn't have worked out well for me. But later, when I did get it, and I did get that opportunity, I was ready. I was ready to grab the ball and run. I was ready to hit it out of the park. I was ready for all of that. But, you know, you gotta be ready for it. And it's tough that these guys, sometimes we're dumping stuff on them that they don't have the skill, not the skill, they don't have the confidence and the ability to be able to do. So you have to handhold them and walk them through it and hope for the best. And it usually comes out pretty good. People will rise to the occasion, but you have to keep that in mind that they're not the guy coming into your territory that's been to 20 other territories, that has 12 years under his belt. He's been a top guy in 3 different territories where he started out at the bottom and had to figure out his way to get himself over to get to the top. You know, they're guys thrilled to have a job, and they're hoping for the best, and they're trying to do everything you tell them to do in the right way.
Maybe this is what everybody will fucking quote us on. You think? Where I knock something? What'd you think of? How do you say his name? Because remember his first Raw I've watched in a while. Braun Strowman or Brown?
I think you got it, Braun Strowman.
Okay. I'm not knocking him. If I'd have been him, I think I would have fucking whipped somebody at the gorilla position before I'd have gone out and done this. Did you think that it got him over any? What did you think of it?
I didn't see it.
Oh, you did. You didn't see that part.
I only watched bits and pieces of Raw. I know that he wrestled 4 guys, but I didn't actually see it.
Well, yeah. Well, you should have seen the 4 guys, and this is what I'm talking about. And I know some people are going to say, "Oh, that was great. How that they had Braun Strowman just beat the shit out of 4 guys." On TV to get him over. And boy, did you see those guys? They looked like shit. Yeah, they did. They looked like shit. One guy, all of them were unimpressive physically in their own separate way, whether it be diminutive size or complete lack of physique or fucking obviously green, no body language, whatever. At one point, when he threw a couple of them across the ring, they just fucking piled up on each other like they were calling the finish fucking early where they were supposed to be piled up on each other and just laid there. It was a fucking mess. These guys, the people were giggling. The guys couldn't be taken seriously. And here's the thing. That's why for the green writing staff, I will give you this because it's free advice. You don't even need to pay for this. When you're trying to get a monster over as an unstoppable physical force that sells little and dominates people and is a massive fucking over type of guy, you don't want people laughing during their matches. You also don't want to make them look silly by putting them in the ring with people who can't work when they're not that experienced themselves. You also, lastly, don't want to make it look like a complete clusterfuck so that the whole idea of what you want to accomplish, being this guy's a badass that can kill people, is lost in the struggle. So 4-on-1 is ridiculous because it just shades the fucking thing up too much. 2 or even 3, but 4 gets ridiculous, especially when you have an inexperienced and green fucking giant who didn't lay his own match out, obviously, and probably can't, and somebody else should have. Because the other guys were so obviously unprepared for a spot like that they were put in. It made people laugh, and then it became a fucking hokey thing about look at him beating up these guys who don't know how to do this fake shit. So it hurt him rather than help him. And I know whereof I speak because it was the same thing as Big Bubba Rogers. If he was going to fight a couple guys on TV in the 80s, Moi is the guy who laid out every single one of his matches because he was just learning, but also because I knew how you needed to lay out a monster match. And I tried, and it was an uphill struggle sometimes to make sure even if the job guys were not prepared, and they were nice people. They were wonderful guys, and they were there to help, but sometimes you had to shut them down or limit their fucking participation to protect the integrity of the fucking performance as a whole, if you know what I mean. So if I was trying to get Braun Strowman over as a monster, I'd cut down on the hokey shit he does on TV. As Bolin says, less of the bad shit and do more of the good shit. Somebody that really knows him as an agent needs to be married to him and needs to find out all the moves that he does well and how you take those moves and then how you can apply those moves to handicap matches or how you can apply anything that he can do athletically, such as leaping to the apron of the ring or flipping over a rope or jumping over a rope or anything surprising athletic for a guy his size. You can possibly modify that into something explosive that he does to a group of fucking people. And make his matches movie monster matches. Imagine that he's the Frankenstein monster and the Villagers or Michael Myers or whatever, and come up with different shit than just the standard pro wrestling fucking strongman shit. And and execute those for a number of weeks on TV against people who are smaller than he is, but look like athletes and know enough about working to make it look like they're trying to do some damage, even though they can't. That's what that poor guy desperately needs, and I don't know why that's so fucking would be difficult to obtain, for heaven's sake.
Looking at today's marketplace, how do you think WWE has done in booking Braun Strowman? Because I believe, not to answer your question for you, but I just think he's got a wealth of potential and can be very special in time. But how do you think he is being positioned right now, and what do you think of him?
You know, he's developed, you know. The one thing I thought that they really did well was, you know, what we used to call job matches or hassler matches, squash matches. You know, he was one of the few guys that got those.
Right. That was smart. That was smart, I thought.
I thought it was really smart, because that way there you're destroying guys, but you're not destroying guys on your main roster. And I watched him not too long ago against Roman. And, you know, it's one of those things where you're going to have to book him like Andre, or you're not going to book him like Andre. You know, it's just like if anybody picks him up, you know, and slams him, because he's kind of like the Frankenstein monster right now.
Yep.
You know, like when him and Big Show went toe to toe. You know, when they stood there, I mean, you know, Big Show's a big guy, but Paul's also lost weight. And this is, you know, that to me is just like, okay, here's the young Paul Bunyan. Here's the guy that's, you know, kind of the giant now. You know, those are the kind of matchups where you got to really be careful. But I think they've done a really good job with him. It's almost to the point, I mean, he's going to need a mouthpiece or somebody if you're going to take him to that next level. You know, somebody that's going to, like, why does it matter if he's the champion?
Right.